All right, welcome to another episode of Lifting and Yapping. The theme of today's video is going to be talking all things interference effect and training multiple qualities at once, or concurrent training, or hybrid training, or whatever label you want to slap on it. Back in my day, we just used to call it training. One of the greatest lies ever told. We all know that hybrid training was invented somewhere in the early 2000s by Alex Viada, and then basically CrossFit kind of came along, but that's not truly hybrid training. That's kind of its own thing. It's under the umbrella. I'm really rambling here at this point, but you can see this is a nuanced and complex topic, so we're going to treat it with respect and dignity like we usually do. As far as the complex, I'm going to be maxing out power clean and jerk with a pause above the knee, but then if we really get cooking, I'll probably go full clean and jerk with a pause above the knee. If I'm feeling extra zesty, you might even see a couple of pauses in the dip and dry before the jerk. But yeah, interference effect, concurrent training. Is CrossFit hybrid training? Is CrossFit GPP? Is this too many topics to cover? You can see that there is a common thread through all of this. But yeah, that's our theme. All things hybrid or concurrent training, and then any other relevant component of that pops into my brain. Okay, so in classical training theory, I think why people get around the interference effect is, your ability to train is finite and your ability to recover is finite. And if you try to do too many things at once, you limit your ability to make any serious progress in any one of those areas. But this doesn't mean that you just spin your wheels in perpetuity. It just means if you're trying to do multiple things at once, your progress in each of those areas will be slower, but assuming that it's all of those qualities are still relevant to your actual goals, then that's kind of the whole point of concurrent training. You can march slowly towards building a crazy physique as you are making strides towards, improving your gymnastics, running faster, whatever the hell you want to combine. The way when general physical preparation or hybrid training is at its peak, shout out to Mitch Moody for getting me onto this line of thinking. I just sort of think of it as leveling up your video game character. And I'm just trying to make the sickest fucking video game character. And that doesn't mean you have to be completely well-rounded, but just sort of distributing the attributes as I see fit. And based on my goals, I want to run faster, I want to have a nice body, I want to lift weights, I want to rip in the surf. I feel like I am going for a relatively even spread of all these attributes. If all you care about is being as jacked as possible, if all you care about is being as strong as possible, then you don't need to train variously. You don't need to worry about the interference effect, because why would you be worrying about any other form of training? And why I think talking about the interference effect is creating an unnecessary boogeyman for people who do have multiple goals is it scares them off training all relevant qualities year round, and I truly believe that that is the gold standard approach to concurrent training. Okay, so at the end of the day, most expressions of athleticism are a combination of physical qualities expressed simultaneously. So what do I mean by that? So let's just pick a random example. A field sport athlete. Being a field sports athlete, a successful one, it's not an expression of just strength. It's not just an expression of skill. It's not just an expression of endurance, mobility, speed. And just like their sport has all those qualities expressed simultaneously, we can train these qualities relatively concurrently as well. So the old world view of training, where you're really buying into this concept of the interference effect, it's like, well, if we're creating too many different stimuli at once, we won't be able to adapt to any of them. But this is also based on an outdated understanding of energy systems, this idea that we alternate between different energy systems one at a time. And this is the easiest way to explain it to people, but reality is a little bit more complex. So what's happening in reality is you're just biasing one energy system. So all of these energy substrates are always present in your system. It's just using one of them over the other. But you don't just switch them on or off the same way that your muscles don't activate or just completely go to sleep. They just create varying degrees of tension. And it's the same with all these different energy systems. We're all just biasing one a little bit more than all of the others. Forget about field sports. Like, just think about when you're doing your strength training, right? Your aerobic system never shuts off. Like, yeah, you might be doing an anaerobic task, like some heavy lifting, but the thing that's powering your brain, your lungs, and when you're sitting down in between your sets, that's all the aerobic system facilitating that recovery. So, like I said, even when you're sort of thinking about a specific type of training, there's still just this omnipresence of multiple energy systems and multiple physical qualities being stimulated to some extent. This also doesn't mean that you do an equal dose of all those qualities year round. You're not just running the same program all the time, even though that's perfectly fine in my opinion. What I actually prefer is a vertical integration approach. So we have a presence of all qualities year round, but we just sort of periodically rotate the emphasis, whether that's in response to a competition schedule, subjective needs and wants, or just for the sake of doing something a little bit different for the purposes of mental stimulation. So yeah, we have a pie that we can divide up however we please. And sometimes there's only a small slice of pie that we can dedicate to something, and that amount of training may just be enough to maintain that quality while we're trying to bring everything else up. What I think people don't think about enough when it comes to that old model that is really scared of this interference effect, and they do just isolate one training quality at a time, is why are you comfortable detraining every other relevant physical quality just so you can bring up one of them? I think that has a higher likelihood, if you don't program really, really effectively, to leading someone to spinning their wheels. Like, this is the thing with intermediates. You need a longer exposure to adapt to the stimulus. It's not just about the intensity, it's about the duration of the exposure to the stimulus as well. I mean, managing your external stresses, this is something that's always going to be better for your training, recovery, and adaptations, even if you're only training one quality at a time. But if you want any shot at making strides in multiple different physical domains, I think it really does put a lot of pressure on you to manage your externals a little bit better, or it has a higher requirement to manage your externals just because there's so much work to do. There's a higher minimum effective dose of this training in total so that we can make even just a little bit of progress in each of these areas. So it's like we have to meet minimum effective dose, not just for hypertrophy and strength, but then also takes a certain amount of training to bring up your speed, a certain amount of training to bring up your mobility, or especially your conditioning. And the more you increase your capacity to recover in general, the more you keep work stress, life stress, relationship stress down, that all then opens up space to attack training harder or do more training or just recover better, more effectively from that training stimulus. There's so many different layers to potential interference, but like really a more accurate description, in my opinion, would just be load management. Like, so much of this all just boils down to load management. And it's easy to just illustrate this with some examples. So obviously in any program where we're trying to get stronger legs, we're going to have some sort of heavy squatting. And, you know, maybe we also have the goal, like some sort of conditioning-based goal, some endurance-based goal. Maybe we're trying to run a 20K for the first time. So we're going to have a program that has top sets for strength training and then some endurance work where we're on our legs. If I do my hardest run for the week before my heavy squat session, my heavy squat session is going to be really, really tough, and I'm not going to do a good job of it. Having said that, if I do it in the reverse order, the strength piece could actually be a little bit of, post-activation potentiation for the run. Or like I said, it's definitely not going to interfere to the same degree that squatting first will, versus absolutely tanking your legs with that run. One thing I do just want to say to caveat this though, in a concurrent program where you're genuinely chasing down 2, 3, 4 goals, even more potentially simultaneously, nothing's going to be perfect. Sometimes you will be running on trashed legs. Sometimes you will be carrying a little bit of fatigue into your strength piece. It's just about trying to manage it as well as you possibly can. But like I said, getting neurotic about the specifics of your microcycle, don't lose too much sleep over that. When there's some low-hanging fruit, you just go into bed a little bit earlier, you increase in your caloric intake, you actually hitting your protein target for the day. So think about those things first, because the better you can increase your capacity for recovery, the more forgiving your programming decisions will be. I think it would also be good to talk about the effect of the concurrent or the hybrid training craze on people who do just have specific goals, because I know there are a bunch of people who only care about how jacked they can get, like bodybuilders, or people who only care about how strong they can get, and they're not worried about all these other qualities. Are you missing out on something by training specifically? And I'd say that you are, depending on the degree of specificity and depending on how much you feel like that's necessary just to get good at one thing. My belief is that there's a health component to every single physical quality. So even though you might not notice a direct performance carryover to increasing your cardio as a powerlifter, or to doing some light plyometrics, or just training at different velocities, I think that there are components of that that will make you a healthier person, that will make you more resilient to stresses, that will help you thrive and adapt to your training better, even if you only have that one specific goal. So it's not necessarily that training more variously helps you with these specific goals. It's that humans thrive in a variable environment with a variety of stresses, and if we can just have a presence of them. So I think the difference between a powerlifter that is literally going into the gym, hitting some SBD and accessories, and then sedentary for the entirety of their existence outside of the gym, I don't see those people thriving, at least not in the long term. Whereas the powerlifters that, get above 3,000 steps a day, they hit the assault bike occasionally, they've seen the sun, they're getting their vitamin D up. And going with this logic even further, 5 years ago, I never would have entertained dosing plyometrics to a high-level powerlifter or a bodybuilder. Why am I, that can only go wrong. What's the potential upside? Fucking nothing if they don't actually care about their jumping or explosive ability. You're only introducing a threat to the system, another stress that could potentially lead to an injury or something like that. But yeah, strength training is just all the same. So my GoPro just overheated in the gym on like a 22-degree day. So shout out to GoPro, shout out to their creator kit, aka the GoPro Incinerator 3000. Really astounding technological developments there by the people at GoPro. They keep talking about how the new model, the battery life just lasts so long in the snow now. Now the issue is, when you're anywhere where there's no snow, your GoPro just incinerates itself in the creator kit. I'm so angry at GoPro. Anyway, hopefully I didn't delete that last clip where I was just sort of talking about the trickle-down effect of the hybrid craze and how it can even enhance the training of people who have really specific goals. And it really just is because of that. If you can find the true minimum effective dose of all these other qualities, just a little bit of conditioning, a little bit of ballistic or plyometric work, just so you're not moving at the same velocity for absolutely everything that you do. Well, like I said, that's that lesson from hybrid training for specific athletes. It's like there's this health component. Humans thrive in a variable environment. Just make sure that there's enough variety of stimuli so that you're actually just a genuinely healthy person. It's so much easier to turn a healthy person into a strong person than it is a sick person into a strong person. All right, let me try and rip this 110 kilo pause clean and jerk, and then we'll see if I can yap on a little bit longer before this GoPro just bursts into flames. I'm going to do some bench press, but no one needs to see that shit, so I hope you got something out of this video. If you want a free week of general physical preparation, head down to the show notes. If you want to start your content creation journey, start selling your own online programs, there's a product down there for that as well. Just released this week, Content Creation E-commerce ebook, and the support for that early on, has just been overwhelming, and I'm really grateful for that. So thank you to everyone who's purchased it so far. I know you're going to get so much out of it. And yeah, I'll talk to you soon.